Tom, you were a photographer once upon a time, probably not that long ago.
No, still am.
Why the move into films?
I think for me it was quite a natural progression. Like from I grew up kind of basically shooting my friends who were musicians, like from basically about the age of 14, and like there was this period in London music where suddenly everything was coming out of Twickenham, and I was their mate, and it was with photography it's all about being in the right place at the right time, and those people kind of grew to be Florence and the Machine, Jamie T, Adele, these kind of megastars.
Oh, right, okay, yes,
yes.
The big hitters.
Which it was kind of bizarre. It was like it was before MySpace. It was like we were kind of that MySpace generation where and before digital cameras really kind of massively hit the market. So people weren't shooting like that much. Photography was kind of dying a little bit, but I always had a love for kind of observation and shooting on film, and then with Florence asked me to do her first video for her, and I'd never done that before. I'd always been writing stories, but I just kind of picked up a video camera and Off I went. Yeah, and I just fell in love. All of a sudden from photography and portraiture and photography and film. You can. I realised I could tell so much more of a story in film than you can in a photograph. But obviously the two kind of complement each other really well.
So with your first film, you're probably sort of pinching yourself really, because you've got a cast that includes Samantha Morton, you've got Daniel, you've got Billie Piper.
Yeah,
How
absolutely.
lucky do you feel?
I mean, it's been a kind of totally surreal kind of process. I mean, I've been making music videos, short films, commercials for a while, but like nothing can prepare you for the kind of onslaught that is like independent filmmaking. But with Sam, Billie and Daniel like kind of responding to the first draft in the way that they did, it really kind of gave me the confidence and also the film the momentum I think it needed to be made. And I think that draft really, I wrote it in quite a, I was going through a lot of stuff myself, and I was kind of coming out the other side of that, and when I started getting this response, and that was that really spurred me on. So I can't really believe that it's here now.
So Daniel, how did you respond when you saw the script? Because actually it's very sparse as far as the dialogue is concerned, and
yes.
I wondered what sort of challenges that posed to you as an actor.
Well, I'd had the opportunity to work with Tom before on a short film, so we had a shorthand with one another, and that was a great experience. So
So the fact that he was a first-time feature film director didn't really come into it?
Not really that much for me, because the short film we made together, Rags, was again a really accomplished piece. But yet, this is his first feature, and it was clear from the first draft that, and indeed working with him on the short film, that he has. It's interesting Tom's talking about his photography background, because what he naturally has as a filmmaker is that brilliant sense of observation. And I think when I first read Two for Joy, the way in which he observed the subjects in the film, the characters in the film, the way that he always depicts the characters with such sensitivity, such care. I mean, all of these characters are dealing with deeply hard-hitting issues. It's a film about grief, it's a film about mental health, accountability, all of that stuff. And yet, even with it not necessarily having much dialogue, the characters leap off the page and they come across as completely believable and three-dimensional. And I think that's the thing as an actor, that's the thing that draws you in. And again, when you throw actors of the calibre of Samantha Morton and Billie Piper, and the three kids that they discovered are exceptional, and their performances are extraordinary in this film. When you throw that into the mix, it's sort of a no-brainer, really. And you have a nucleus or a sort of launch pad into sort of making a really engaging and memorable piece of work. And hopefully we've done that.
You've touched on some of the themes in the film there, depression, bereavement. I think also child carers comes into it as well.
Yeah.
What do you both think the film has to actually say on those subjects?
Well, for me, it was an opportunity to shine a light on a subject which I actually kind of, when I was coming into it, knew very little about. I was working, kind of doing bits and pieces of workshops with a kind of a drama charity called The Big House which is run by a wonderful woman called Maggie Norris in Hackney, and it's for young people who have been through the care system and come out the other side. And I was just listening to some of those stories about so many of these kids have been or young people have been taken away from their parents, and it wasn't because of drugs and alcohol or the kind of taboo subjects people kind of instantly they kind of believe when they hear about people going into care. A lot of them had been, the situation at home had just become so unmanageable due to a parent's mental health or sickness that they were caring for them as well from such a young age, and I was kind of dumbfounded that there was not more support. And there's not, the government don't recognise them as carers yet because they're under the working age. And I was just like, I need to shine I felt that it was a good opportunity to kind of shine the light on that without being too kind of overtly political. I just wanted to open the curtains on it, really.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever a film that bangs those issues over the top of the head. You know what I mean? It's sort of it's a slow burn of a film. It's a film that observes its characters and those themes gradually. What's great about Tom and great about the film is that it gives the audience a degree of intelligence, and he allows you to sort of become involved with these characters and sort of you have to figure it out yourself what's going on.
It's very pared down.
It's great, it's very minimal, which is always a great sort of way of approaching something.
You, I have to say, are one of the busiest actors I've ever come across.
I'm busy at the moment. It's a bit.
You have a list of TV and film credits as long as you're on, and I suspect we probably associate you more with comedy than serious roles.
Oh, really?
The last time I saw you was in Swimming with Men.
Oh, right.
But actually, this is anything but a comedy. How would you describe your character in this one? I mean, I tend to think of him as the sort of Mr. Nice Guy of the piece.
Yeah, I guess he's the character that brings the most levity to the table, and I think in that respect he's a really important character for the film because it's just a different colour in the palette, and he's very much the mediator between those two families. He's I guess so in many respects he pushes the narrative on. He's the one instigating things, whether it's taking the young boy out, taking the kids fishing, or doing the barbecue and all that sort of stuff. So, but again, we had discussions. He's had a very interesting backstory because deep into the film you find out that he himself has a child, and for some reason, whatever reason we don't know, he's decided to exist in this caravan park as opposed to being with his partner and his child. So
I think I had an idea when I was kind of writing the film. I went to see a version of The Tempest at the Globe, and I felt I saw the character of Prospero as this, this kind of broken man who's escaped, even though he's been shipwrecked, he's escaped from something, and he's kind of orchestrating this kind of farce on the island, and that was a kind of loose kind of starting point for me with the character of Leas. Was he's just kind of commanding. He thinks he's commanding the waves, and there's a speech in it where he's like, "Oh, this is like kind of my little world now."
Yeah, feels
feels like my little world now, which is a kind of little break into kind of a monologue. But it was always important for me that there was this kind of levity to it, and the film kind of opens up from kind of Act 1 into Act 2. Suddenly it brightens up, and you feel that there is hope, and that
there's a difference in the light.
Yeah, in the colour, and that was
that brilliant seaside sunshine.
Yeah, and that was it was meant to feel like this escape, and kind of bringing in like elements of kind of Mike Leigh, I think, into those characters, which I felt was really. It's crucial in a film like this that there is levity and there is hope, and I really felt that Danny and Billie kind of brought that to it.
Tom, Daniel, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.